The American people don't want any more war. The American people don't want to see other countries put ahead of them. The American people don't want to see these massive outflows of money from the United States to these endless wars. And so if there's some economic viability project, this is of course what President Trump's plan was, talking about the minerals, other resources, a deal that could be done between the US and Ukraine, that's something that perhaps the American people can get behind. But this idea of continuing to fund an endless war, simply not in the cards. And so Zelensky going and acting like this thing can go on indefinitely, I think it gravely underestimates the mood of where the American people currently are. And I think it gravely underestimates his own leverage as he sits there in Kiev. Now, President Trump has said he wants to end the war. And this is something that President Trump has always said, that the Russian state isn't some Middle Eastern country. This isn't Iraq, this isn't Afghanistan, this isn't Libya, this isn't North Korea, this isn't some country that can just be pushed around because they're so small. They are, in fact, a leading nuclear power and the leading nuclear power in the world. A country where it makes sense, and President Trump has said this again and again, it makes sense for the United States and Russia to get along.
Let's look at the Drudge Report right now in real time, and what do we see? USA plan to stranglehold Ukraine. Stranglehold. And let's see, this is up from the Telegraph. Now, this is the UK's version of events. So this is the globalist version. And by the way, folks, this shows you the importance of having something like Human Events Daily, independent media there on the ground, actually able to show you what went down in this deal. You heard my version of it. Now let's hear the globalist spin. Panic in Kiev as U.S. president demands higher share of GDP than Germany's First World War reparations. Well, hold on a second. Germany's First World War reparations, this was a situation where the United States was funding the war effort in Ukraine. Almost $200 billion have gone to Ukraine. So what President Trump and Secretary Bessent are looking at is a way to get a return on the investment, on a way to recoup the losses. This isn't about reparations. Why would Ukraine and Zelensky be paying reparations to the United States? It makes no sense. The globalist narrative from Drudge Report has no sense on its face. It's completely backwards. This is about recouping losses, which, by the way, if you want to get really interesting, why didn't the U.S. get any money back for the Lend-Lease program for the billions and billions of dollars that FDR gave to who? The Soviet Union, even before Pearl Harbor ever started. But of course, we're not allowed to ask those kind of questions. Again, what was really going on in those negotiations at the end of World War II? I'm not sure, but I do know that if there's negotiations going on vis-a-vis World War III, that Human Events is going to be there and I'm going to be in the room. So what do we see here with the Telegraph? The Telegraph said, and this is how you know the globalists hate this plan. All right, the globalists hate this thing. They want it out of there. This is terrible. They don't want it all. Donald Trump's plan for a $500 billion US dollar payback from Ukraine goes far beyond U.S. control over the country's critical minerals. It covers everything from ports and infrastructure to oil and gas and the larger resource base of the country. The terms of the contract that landed at Zelensky's office a week ago amount to the U.S. economic colonization of Ukraine in legal perpetuity. It implies a burden of reparations that cannot be possibly achieved. The document has caused consternation and panic in Kiev. The Telegraph has obtained a draft of the decisional contract. Let's see. Now, listen to this line, though. It states that the U.S. and Ukraine should form a joint investment fund to ensure that hostile parties to the conflict do not benefit from the reconstruction of Ukraine. Now, what does that mean? That means hostile parties. What's that about? That's about keeping China out. That's about setting it up so that China isn't involved. And by the way, I'm not even going to sit here right now and say whether or not I'm for this deal or against this deal, because that's not what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying very hard to just accurately depict what the deal was and what the deal is not. Honestly, I'm not even sure if this is in the United States' interest. Certainly, getting rare earth minerals, getting this stuff from Ukraine is in the U.S. interest. Is it really worth it? I'm not sure. But obviously, I would like to see something for the American people. The idea, though, is we don't want World War III happening. That is the price. That is the cost that we're getting here. The value is that we don't have nuclear annihilation. But hostile parties to the conflict do not benefit from the reconstruction of Ukraine. That is all about keeping China out. So no China, don't want China at all, don't want any of this getting in, because we know China wants to get in there with the backfill. And by the way, if Ukraine brings China in, if Zelensky brings China in, then what a slap in the face that would be to the United States after the United States paid, again, $200 billion humanitarian aid, the war effort, and even financing for the Ukrainian government. And as a matter of fact, the Ukrainian pension system, even the Ukrainian pension system was on this at one point. That's what we need to get into, folks. That's what we need to explain. That's what we need to get into for everyone. And so for them saying it's reparations, no, it's not reparation. It's not reparation, okay? There's no reparations at all when we're looking at this piece. Joint venture. If there's going to be a further agreement, if there's going to be a further relationship, if there's going to be look, if you want this relationship to continue between the U.S. and Ukraine, there's got to be some benefit to the American people. And that's what President Trump is coming in and saying. That's what President Trump is saying for this. Because if there isn't a direct benefit for the American people, then why would the U.S. be directly involved? It's not our business. It just isn't. It's a feud that's been going on for, in some cases, hundreds of years, in some cases, certainly for the last 30 years. Ukrainians, the Russians, this is all going back to the fall of the Soviet Union. Where did the borders lie? Where does it all go? In fact, my family, the Posobiec family, is from a very small village that's very close to where the current border between Ukraine and Poland is. Now, that's the current border. Didn't used to be the border. Didn't used to be a border town, but it is now. It's actually not far from. In fact, because of the security concerns for the trip over, I wasn't even able to inform my Polish cousins that I was going to be in town, even though at one point I was about 35 minutes away from the village. It is what it is, folks. What can I say? Sorry, guys. I'll let you know next time. But when it really comes down to it, this is about an understanding of cutting through all of the BS. The leaders of Europe, guess what? You didn't pay for this thing. You didn't put up for this thing. And that's why President Trump is cutting you out. You're not in the room. What are you going to do about it? Trudeau, Macron, Trudeau's Canada, obviously. But the point is, these guys who want to bark about this, who want to complain about this, Olaf Scholz, Donald Tusk over in the liberal globalist Polish minister. No. This is about peace, and this is about the United States getting a peace for themselves.